I think we are at a point in time as well where it's like a beautiful, perfect storm of everything coming together, where women can feel not only just enabled, but empowered to actually go take control of their finances, invest their money, which is our big focus. And because we're here talking about this, also understand their relationship with money and how that's impacted their lives. So it's as much as an investing course, obviously personal development is a big part of it, because money is energy, as you know. We have a relationship with this thing called money. So if I just teach women about this strategy and this is how you set up your pension and you're investing and all these things, that's great. But if someone has a really challenged relationship with money for whatever reason, from their childhood, from relationships, anything, they're so less likely to take the steps, right? Success, 80% psychology, 20% strategy. So we give the strategy, but the woo part of it for me is bringing in the personal development, looking at a relationship with money, looking at the energetics of it. How do we manifest? How do we open up as a portal for more abundance to flow in? So for me, that is why, as you mentioned at the beginning, wealth and woo were just so intertwined and like so entangled in necessity of each other.
What are you working on first? Is it starting with the practical or the energy?
Yeah, yes, totally get it. I start with the strategy. So we get women going on money dates. We get them setting up their accounts, opening up their, like even just today, getting messages from the women, the witches in my group being like, I just opened up my investment account, and they're like excited to deposit their money and make their first investment. And it's like, we bring together this community where when they have the strategy in place after 3 weeks, because it doesn't take that long once you're shown, like it's not like this is months long to figure out investing. It's not, there's not that much you need to know. You just need to know the right things. So we spend 3 weeks teaching them all about money, investing, how to invest, helping them to actually open up and do it. And then we bring in the woo. And the reason we do that is because when you have set yourself up in this 3D physical world from a strategic point of view, and you know what's happening with your money, and you're able to open up your bank accounts, and you've actually faced that fear, which is the case for some women, and you're now starting to see, oh, wow, I can make my money work for me. That in itself has already changed so much. And so when we go to the woo then, which is of course more like spiritual, it's more 5D, and we can play with the energy more. You can do so knowing that when money flows in, you have the containers there. It's set up. You're set up to manage your money, to contain it, to know where it's going, to have confidence around it. And so it makes that whole journey in the woo and looking at a relationship with money and overcoming some of the fears and challenges we have so much easier. Because I already faced my fears of looking at my bank account, managing my money, figuring out where things are going, and what do I actually need to do. So 3D, and then we play with the 5D coming in.
That had a mini breakthrough, because it makes so much sense. What's the point working on manifesting any amount of money when there is nothing tangible that the money we want to attract can get funneled into? Yes,
that's exactly it. Right? So 3D, and then we play with the 5D coming in. I've heard stories of women being like, I just realized I manifested like 100 grand last year, and I had no idea because I have nothing to show for it. And you're like, because they don't know how to manage it. And so it's come in, but it's gone out just as fast. And so I love that they've been able to manifest, but it's like, now let's show you the containers and how to manage it. Because I, as much as the next witch, love playing in the 5D. I love the spiritual conversations. I could go down every rabbit hole with you in it. And it's so exciting and I love it. However, we are also physical beings. And I know we're spiritual, but we have this physical body. We live in a physical world, and it's a 3D world that we're operating in. So we need both. One without the other just doesn't quite work.
If you want to ask me about like spirituality and money, I have something to share there. There are a couple different elements to this. So like if you're a helper, if you're a healer, if the thing that you're called to do is in service of others, I want to give you full permission that you get to charge money for that. If you're listening to this, you get to charge money for that. Because here's the thing, you cannot be a helper or a healer if you can't support yourself. You can't eat and provide shelter for yourself and save for retirement. There's a lot of shame that we carry around money. asking for money, like admitting that we like money. It's almost like we have this mentality that we're taught throughout our lives that money is almost spiritually dirty, right? And yet we forget that the Catholic Church, what do they do every Sunday? They collect donations, different religious groups, they have tithing, like you tithe a certain percentage of your income to them. If you wanted to become a monk or a nun, you can, but you're not going to be homeless, and you're not going to go without food, and you're not going to go without clothes. You're going to have a lot of financial backing, right? Full permission to ask for the money that will allow for you to live the life you want, and also still be a spiritual business owner or a spiritual service provider, and be a helper and healer. We were talking about me being very risk tolerant. There's a reading that I do with most of my clients on their sacred money archetypes. And it basically breaks down what's your operating system when it comes to making money and saving money and spending money. Because it's going to be different for everyone. Like my archetypes make me like very good at spending money and making money back.
Oh,
right. My archetypes, I do not have one single archetype that makes me good at spending. Or I'm sorry, it makes me good at saving.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. The work I have to do around money is that I have to focus more on saving and finding more reliable ways to invest versus someone else who has a different archetype. They may actually, their struggle is spending. So they have to learn how to spend better.
And how do you find out these archetypes?
There's an assessment that I do with my clients.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yes. It's like a 8-minute questionnaire that you fill out, and it basically tells you what your top 3 are. And then through the reading that I do with my clients, you really learn. It's amazing. Every time I do this reading, people are like very skeptical, like, whatever. And then I start telling them all of the key attributes of the archetypes, and they start getting very uncomfortable because they're like, oh my God, I'm getting so called out right now. This is like, oh God, like they lean back and they cross their arms and like, how do you know this about me? Like, I want to hide right now. But there's, we're so good at coming up with stories about ourselves, and usually the story is I'm bad with money. I'm bad with money. I can't be trusted with money. There can also be traumatic experiences from our past that impact how we use money right now. And I just want you to give yourself full permission that like, you're not bad with money. Like whatever story you have made up about money, it's probably not true. It's probably a combination of like what's been handed down to you generationally, and also what your money archetypes are. Right. And usually once you figure those 2 things out, like that's when the floodgates open and more money comes to you.
Okay. So just having the awareness, you reckon?
Having the awareness and also compassion for yourself.
Okay.
My very first sales job, I made, oh God, in the first 2 weeks of that job, I made $16,000, and I spent it. I didn't hold on to it because it didn't feel real to me.
Wow.
And like the first step for me in my money relationship was to be okay admitting that I liked money. Right. It's very similar to like our relationship with our spirituality and being open about it.
If you tell yourself you don't like, you're ashamed of it or don't like it, naturally the behavior is like you're not going to hold on to it.
Well, I want you to imagine like being in high school, being a teenager, and like imagine you had a crush on someone. Like you really, really liked them, and like you always wanted to find excuses to be around them and all that stuff, and like you wanted to just be in their presence and like hopefully have them ask you out sometime, right? And say like you're walking down the hallway and you realize like they're right in front of you and they're talking to a friend, and imagine like your name comes up in the conversation and their friend says, oh, what do you think of Julie? And they're like, I don't care about her. Like, no, she doesn't matter. Like, who cares about Julie? Like, it's like, no one should care about Julie. Julie does not matter. Right? Like, could you imagine what that would feel like? Well, what do we say about money? Oh, money doesn't matter. Like, like who cares about money? Like if you like money, oh God, like that means there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
if your money and you're walking behind you in a hallway, completely having a crush on you, like you're going to be devastated.
You're not going to come back around.
No, it's
so rude. Yeah.
We don't realize that like money is just energy, just like love, just like attention. Right. But what happens when you squash love like that? Like it doesn't come back around. Right. You really have to say, but imagine a different scenario if the friend had said, oh, what do you think of Julie? Julie's amazing. I love Julie. Julie like makes so many things possible. And like, I light up when she's around and oh my God, like you just be like, oh my God, I'm right here. Hello. Come on. Let's have dinner. Come on.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that's a great metaphor just to think about, money as a sensitive person that has feelings and who likes to be loved as well. Who doesn't love to be loved?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. I'm gonna get a little bit more curious about how I talk and think about money. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. We are full of these sometimes counterintuitive ideas about money, and we sabotage ourselves with our own ways of thinking that we don't necessarily realize that we have. So how do you support people in seeing them, changing them, and have different outcomes?
It's interesting that you just said, Julie, something around like we sabotage ourselves. I would actually challenge that and say, usually we don't sabotage ourselves. Usually we are just more committed or more aligned with something that is even more important to us. We all have a relationship with money. And if that relationship isn't aligned with what you're trying to create, it looks like sabotaging yourself. But very often, it's like in any other relationship, you're just more committed to a different aspect of it.
Yeah, so we're not sabotaging ourselves. We're just being aligned to something different in our life that we are not aware of.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how rational you are, your relationship with money is very often and a very emotional one. And when you're looking for the logical explanation for some of the dumb mistakes that smart people make, there it is, right there.
In the emotions, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. You're coming up with an interesting challenge that is called Date Your Money, right? So I'm very intrigued by that metaphor with dating.
I'm very intrigued with it too, because I'm doing the challenge for the first time. And here's the backstory to it. We've talked on and off about money beliefs and money stories and money blocks. And I've always talked about this being the very emotionally charged, right? Stories and beliefs. And when I ask people, what's your relationship with money? They just go ahead and answer the question. And when I follow up on, so let me just have you check one thing. What other non-living thing are you in a relationship with? Most people don't come up with a whole lot of things. Now, there's some guys who are in a relationship with their car and, a few things here or there, but nobody really challenges this notion that we're in a relationship with money, right? And it is often a very emotional topic. Likewise, just like sex and intimacy, it's a topic that is very charged and has a lot of, nebulous things around it, but doesn't get talked about very often either, which adds to the whole, shall we say, conundrum, okay? And that is where I realized, if we're going to take this premise that we're in a relationship with money, most of us found themselves into this lifelong committed relationship without ever having dated, because we've never had a get to know you conversation, right? You grow up, you grow into it, and it's somebody who's always been around, right? It's not like a new partner where you intentionally sit down and talk about, what are my goals? What are your goals? What are my values? What are your values? What do you believe about spending? What do you believe about saving? Now, ideally, when you build a committed relationship with a person, you have some of those conversations, right? If you're clever. But with money, most of us never do. And that's where this whole idea of date your money to create the money relationship you want, right? Because now in that 3-day challenge, I'll create a space for you to explore and uncover some of those stories that make up your blueprint, right? What has shaped your relationship with money? What do you believe? Which of the common and maybe less common beliefs around money resonate with you? I'm going to explore that in one of the days. If you want to create a better relationship with money, what is that about, right? It's about how you create money, how you spend it consciously, how you make financial decisions. We're not going to get into the how-to, but we're going to look at what are the values that are driving you? What are the money dials, as Ramit Sethi refers to them, right? What really drives your money decisions? Again, not teaching you technicalities or budgeting or any one of those. That how-to you can find anywhere, right? But that how-to isn't really going to help you until you're clear on what is your blueprint for that relationship? What triggers you emotionally? What really drives you there? And how are those beliefs and stories aligned with the values you have and the things you want to create in your life? Consider that relationship with money permeates a lot of aspects of your life, not just your business, right? It shows up in your relationship with your partner, your spouse, your children, okay? And consider that even if you've done a bit of work around that already, or quite a lot of work around that already, the main thing you likely learned is that there's always another layer, right? You grow and develop, and then something gets triggered and invites you to take another look. And so if you feel like this is a good time to maybe explore some of that, my invitation really is come, play, date your money, right? Start that relationship over, give yourself a chance to clear what doesn't align any longer with what you want to create. And if you do that with a sense of playfulness and curiosity, let's see what we find.